In our today's class, we are going to discuss about intermediaries in the new issue market. Now, over the last few days, we had been discussing about what is new issue market, how do you distinguish between new issue market and capital market. Then we discussed about what are the functions being rendered by new issue market, otherwise called as primary market. We also discussed about some of the instruments that's been brought into the new issue market by corporates for the purpose of raising fund. All these. So in our today's class, as we are going with the discussion of intermediaries, first let us try to understand what is the role being played by this intermediary. So when we look from the perspective of a company, a corporate, which is coming into for the purpose of raising fund from new issue market, these intermediaries actually facilitate in this process. They help in raising fund from the market, maybe as a banker by collecting the application money or helping in the refund of money. It can be like SEBI has made it mandatory that there should be registrar to issue for every issue. So that can be registrars who are actually uh, planning and implementing the entire process, starting with the application, the type of allotment that is to be made, the recording of the applications received, all these aspects. And then when we look into, we have the brokers who are very familiar to us, who is basically the connecting link between the shareholder or investors and the company, or maybe the intermediary, the connecting link between the stock exchange and the investors, right? So all these together, there can be bankers, there can be registrar to issue, brokers to issue, of course, jobbers. We're going to discuss in detail about that in our today's class. Jobbers to issue, underwriters. Then we can see that there might be people who take care of the legal aspect, the legal advisors to the issue, or maybe since the financial instruments or the share is being kept in the dematerialized form, demat form, we will have depository participants. All together, they make up the process of issue management simpler. Of course, most of them render these services, these financial services for a fee, but they are facilitating in the or they are helping in the in the better conduct of issue management within the new issue market. Okay, so with this introduction, we are just going to discuss about the intermediaries in the new issue market. As I said, the first one, registrar to issue, they are sometimes referred to as issue house because as per SEBI guidelines from regulation from 1992, it's no, it is actually mandatory that every issue need to have a registrar to issue, and they might be looking into collection of application, then sorting it, entering that in the books, then going with the verification process, ensuring that every application is complete in itself before the allotment, then going with the allotment issue of certificate, and then the follow. All these will be part of the function being rendered by a registrar to issue. So this is the first intermediary which we will be discussing in our class today. Second one. Second one is brokers to issue. Now, we know that when we talk about a broker, straight the people, the companies, the institutions like Geojit or maybe Sharekhan or maybe Hedge, all these people come into our mind, right? Because they are, see, as an individual investor, we cannot think of buying shares directly without the support of any of the intermediaries. So the role played by these brokers is actually helping the investors in making their investment. They are actually the point of contact for the client, maybe between the company and the client, or it can be, if it is happening in the secondary market, definitely it will be between the stock exchange and the investor. So they are actually the point of contact, and they should be licensed. Of course, they have to get the permission from the SEBI to act as brokers. They have to set up with the minimum regulations, the capital requirements that's been issued by SEBI as per the guideline, and they have to ensure that a regular the audited statements are furnished to SEBI, their accounts being recorded, they are they are following the guidelines issued by SEBI from time to time. All these things are mandatory. So they are primarily the intermediary between the investor and the company in the new issue market. Okay, so brokers to issue is the second one. Now the third one which we are going to discuss is more or less similar to as we say broker, but little difference because of the style of operation. They are jobbers to the issue. The style, the primary difference here is jobbers basically do the business for themselves, whereas brokers, they do their business for their clients like you and me, maybe institutional clients. They buy on behalf of their clients, and the return for them definitely would be in the in the category of brokerage fee. Whereas jobbers, they do the business by themselves, they make profit, and in fact the point of contact of jobbers will be mostly with the brokers, not with the individual investors or institutional investors. Okay, so that's jobbers. So we said about registrars, we discussed about brokers, then we came to jobbers to issue. Now the fourth one which we are going to discuss is managers to issue. Now as the name indicates, managers to issue broadly takes care of the issue management activity. Here also the appointment of one merchant banker, lead merchant banker, is mandatory as per SEBI regulations 1992, and they primarily look into the issue management activities, starting with origination. Origination function is nothing but initially placing the instrument in front of the public, if it is a public issue, or maybe in front of the group of selected investors if it is a private placement. And then the entire issue management activities, no, like they will take care of receiving the minimum subscription or agreement with underwriters. They also take care of documentation with SEBI. All these aspects are taken by them. So that is why they are called as managers. They are managing the issue management activities from the part of a company, right? So the company being a corporate has many other functions to concentrate upon. So the issue management. Now, what do we mean by issue management? Bringing the or coming to the market, to the new issue market for raising fund. That involves a lot of steps and procedures that will be taken care once these people are being appointed as per the SEBI regulation. So the next one is managers to issue. So first one, registrar to issue. Second one, no, brokers to issue, jobbers to issue, managers to issue, and the next one is bankers to issue. Now we know why bankers are needed, because when we are talking about issue management, definitely there is money transaction happening, and this money transaction is set to happen through different banks. Of course, the company will identify banker to the issue, that has to be reported to SEBI, that has to be brought into notice in the publication, in the advertisements, and they will be taking care of receipt of application money, refund of excess money. Suppose if the company has gone with a pro rata, proportionate allotment. For example, I applied for 100 shares, I got only 50 shares, but I had already paid money for 100 shares. Maybe I did not apply to ASBA account using the ASBA account facility. So in that case, the money need to be refunded to me. That will be taken care by bankers to issue. Then there are cases where share of profit that is to be distributed to the investors in the form of dividend, right? Then there may be issue of interest warrants. All these generally will be taken care by bankers to issue. So the first intermediary, registrar to issue. The second one, brokers to issue, jobbers to issue. Then we talked about the managers as merchant bankers or lead issue managers, bankers to issue. Yes. Now we are also going to talk about. So these are the major responsibility connected with the management activity will be taken care by all these intermediaries. Still, there are a lot of services that can ensure that there is a proper conduct of issue management activities for the company in the new issue market. Those include underwriters. Underwriters, of course, these are people who agree to, they are institutional category. Okay, they agree to take up the shares in case the company does not receive the minimum subscription. We have learned that there are different types of underwriters and all. So they are also one form of intermediary that will be there in the new issue market. So they are facilitating, because at times company may incur huge loss because of not receiving the minimum subscription, because they have gone with issue management activities, lot of arrangements, publication of application forms, filing the prospectus, lot of procedures which involve fund, right? So in order to ensure that they receive the minimum subscription, they go with the issue management process. We have the support of underwriters. Then, of course, for every issue, we will have the support of course, those happening in the recent period, we will have the support of depository participants. Why? Because now we don't go with the physical existence of share documents, ownership documents of financial instruments. Now we go with the dematerialized form, or as we call as DMAT form. In fact, that is mitigated, or that is actually put into practice through the support of depository participants. So that is where the importance of the depository participants like CDSL, Central Depository Services Limited, or National Security Depository Limited, as NSDL, comes into. They help in maintaining our ownership in financial instruments in the dematerialized form. See, earlier when we used to purchase shares, the company used to issue certificates to us, and the physical certificates will be couriered to us, and then we have to take care of this certificate not getting destroyed, because that's the sole proof that we are the original owners of the company's shares. Then we have to keep that in the safe deposit. All these things, all these procedures, formalities are taken away by the setting up of depository participants. Another two important persons who normally will be there for every issue are the people who help in advertising the issue, the legal bodies who are actually ensuring that everything it happens as per the legal framework, within the legal framework, ensuring the legal formalities. There can be a legal team who will be looking after the legal aspects connected with the issue management activity. So all these together form the intermediaries to the new issue market. We have another group called investment bankers. Their responsibility or their function in the new issue market is not limited to issue management. If we make a comparison between the merchant bankers and lead managers, investment bankers, the functions rendered by investment bankers are little more macro. They render wide variety of services like issue. Of course, one in that is issue management. Then we have portfolio construction, portfolio revision, portfolio evaluation. Then they go with advisory services. They also go with acting as merchant bankers. So all together, they are also part of new issue market, but they are not primarily limiting their role to the issue management activities that is happening in the new issue market. But they are also one of the intermediary that is helping in the proper conduct of issue management function in the new issue market, or as we call primary market. So just to summarize, today we were just trying to discuss about the intermediaries in the new issue market, where we talked about the registrar to issue, who take care of the verification process, entering, the registration of the, once the share gets allotted, then the registration of the names of the investors, the shareholders in the official list of the company, as well as ensuring to go for the listing procedure. Right, they go with all those functions. Then we talked about the brokers to issue, actually the connecting link between the investors and the company, or investors and the stock market. Jobbers, it's a kind of broker, but generally broker, they do their business for themselves. They may not have direct contact with the individual investors or institutional investors, right? Then we talked about the bankers to issue, who take care of the money matters that are connected with the issue management. We talked about management, like merchant bankers or managers to issue, who help to manage the entire issue. That's no, as we said, as in the case of registrar to issue, here in case of managers, or as we call lead merchant bankers, one appointment of at least one is mandatory as per SEBI regulations. Then the next one which we took to our discussion was about underwriters, depository participants. Of course, when we are trying to maintain the ownership in the dematerialized form, we need the service that is being rendered by depository participants. Of course, there are still many other groups which involves the advertisers, legal advisors, and maybe other who facilitate the function of transfer of this ownership from the company to individual shareholders or institutional shareholders. Altogether, we call them as intermediaries, or people who stand in between the company and the actual investors in the new issue market. If there are no intermediate, we have learned, we started our subject by the diagrammatic representation of what is the role played by these intermediaries. If there are no intermediaries, there is a direct channel that is flowing between the company and the investor. Maybe it might take a lot of time. Why? Because there are a lot of investors and the company may not be able to manage all of them at a time. There comes the need of intermediaries to facilitate the easy conduct of business between the company and the corporate and the investor, ultimate investor.